Coming to you live from our Auckland Park studios, this is Prime News on SABC3. Here are the top stories. South African goods destined for the United States will now attract an import duty of 30% from the 7th of August. In aviation news, South Africa's Air Traffic and Navigation Services has confirmed operational disruptions and departure delays at OR Tambo International Airport. And suspended Gauteng Judge Tintswalo Nana Makubele faces possible impeachment. August is here, and so is your 8 o'clock news bulletin. Welcome to Prime News on 3 on this very first day of the month. My name is Beki Mutumomulete, and we are setting the tone for the significant month ahead that celebrates the strength, resilience, and contribution of women. Let's take a look at the top news stories for the evening, and here they are. South African goods destined for the United States will now attract an import duty of 30% from the 7th of August. This follows US President Donald Trump sending a letter advising the South African government earlier in July this year, which he also published on his social media platforms. So, the question remains, what are the possible ramifications of this trade policy for the South African economy, and which industries are likely to be affected?
The country's automobile and agricultural sectors are the ones likely to be hardest hit by the Trump administration's tariffs taking effect today. The auto sector accounts for 5.3% of GDP and is the fifth largest export sector in the country, accounting for 18% of the country's total exports. Last year alone, the sector exported 35 billion rands worth of cars to the United States market. The agricultural sector stands to be at an immediate disadvantage as some of its competitors like Peru and Chile are subject to a lower tariff of 10%. But what purpose do tariffs actually serve?
Tariffs are usually introduced when countries want to protect their local industry in relation to imports of that same good into their country. In other words, they want to try and make their own homemade goods as cheap as possible relative to potential imports, so that people will buy the local goods, and so that will generate employment within the country itself.
Of what President Donald Trump has indicated he wants to achieve in order to supposedly make America great again. Through the auspices of the Department of Trade and Industry, the government has been trying to engage with US officials to work on getting a better trade deal than the 30% import duty imposed by Trump.
We're engaging with the countries all over the world with those that have said, in citrus, we've got a possible agreement with you, we can supply, how do we sort that out? But you're dealing with citrus, you're dealing with chemicals, you're dealing with automotive components, with vehicles. So you're dealing with a whole range of industries. And the impact would be different per industry.
With the 30% duty now in place on South African goods, while detrimental for some sectors in the short term, Jameen argues that the majority of South African exports to the United States, which includes strategic minerals like PGMs, gold, chrome and coal, will not be subject to tariffs, adding that roughly 2.5% to 3% of the country's total export value would be liable to the tariff levy, estimating that this could shave off around 0.1 to 0.2 percentage points of GDP. But this, of course, will be of little comfort to those industries and workers specifically impacted by this latest development. Nompumelelo Siziba, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Meanwhile, President Cyril Ramaphosa says intensive negotiations are underway with the United States of America. In addition, the South African government says it is finalizing a package to support companies that are vulnerable to tariffs.
He is adamant that it will continue to negotiate with Washington, D.C. to avert the looming crisis precipitated by the reciprocal tariffs. Speaking to the media at the Union Buildings, President Cyril Ramaphosa says they'd submitted a framework deal to enhance mutually beneficial trade and investments with the U.S.
We put on the table a package which would deal with our trade relations with the United States, that contained what we were offering and what we wanted them to offer us. And we wanted a number of trade items to be exempted.
Pretoria says it's willing to assist those companies and producers who will bear the brunt of these tariffs.
We are saying to our companies that we are going to come up with supportive measures. We're going to support our companies through negotiations, but also there are other interventions that we are working on which will lessen the blow.
Are also reeling after the Trump administration imposed its sweeping tariffs. 50% in Brazil, 30% for Algeria, 15% for Ghana, 25% for India, and 41% for Syria. Kylie Khumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
On top of that, the ANC National Executive Committee says that it will deliberate extensively on the 30% tariffs imposed on South African goods by the United States of America. ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula says the 4-day meeting in Johannesburg this weekend will discuss the state of the economy and the impact of the tariffs.
The state of the country's economy is the main item on the agenda of the ANC's National Executive Committee meeting. Job creation and economic growth are expected to be severely impacted by the 30% tariffs imposed by the United States of America. Industrialization and beneficiation of South Africa's raw minerals have been a focal point of deliberations by the ANC's Economic Transformation Subcommittee.
With regard to industrialization and pushing for that, because we have said a number of things in terms of the manifesto, in terms of industrialization, that we need to intensify beneficiation and all of that. So the ETC will present here, and then we'll have a way forward from the point of view of the ANC in terms of what needs to be done.
The preparations for the G20 summit will also be looked at in the political overview report on the international balance of forces. The party believes that the city of Johannesburg is ready to host the G20 summit despite the service delivery challenges the city faces.
Johannesburg is ready and should be ready to host the G20 summit.
ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa, in his political overview, detailed the global balance of forces and the repercussions of the USA taking a negative stance on South Africa. The political overview also set out the performance of the economy, noting the decrease of the interest rates by 25 basis points by the Reserve Bank. Samkela Masego, SABC News, Johannesburg.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has appointed Professor Feroz Kachalia as Minister of Police amid growing concerns over alleged criminal syndicates infiltrating state security agencies. This comes after a constitutional court ruling dismissed the challenge by the Umkhonto weSizwe party, which had questioned the president's powers to place Police Minister Senzo Mchunu on special leave and appoint Kachalia in his place.
In terms of the powers vested in me by Section 91(3)(c) of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, 1996, I have decided to appoint the following person, Professor Feroz Kachalia, to be Minister of Police.
Last month, serious allegations surfaced about organized criminal networks infiltrating South Africa's state security structures. In response, Mchunu was placed on special leave pending the outcome of a Judicial Commission of Inquiry. Professor Kachalia has now taken the reins of a ministry under scrutiny. Kachalia, who also serves as chairperson of the National Anti-Corruption Council, says he intends to use the council's findings to inform his leadership.
I'm now in a better position than I was as chairperson of the council to take the recommendations of the council forward, and I will certainly be doing so. I will be asking the National Commissioner when I meet him to arrange for a meeting between the council and the National Anti-Corruption, between the National Anti-Corruption Council and his management team to discuss our recommendations.
Kachalia says he is mindful of South Africa's troubled history with policing and has warned against heavy-handed approaches. National Police Commissioner General Fanny Masemola has pledged his full support to the new minister.
I commit to work with him, I support him, I will support him, and the men and women in blue, we will support him, to commit to work with him.
Cachalia is expected to visit all 9 provinces in the coming months. Zara Groenewald, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Welcome back. In news just in, suspended Gauteng judge Tintswalo Nana Makubele faces possible impeachment. That's after the Judicial Service Commission found the suspended judge guilty of gross misconduct for Part A, accepting appointment as chairperson of the PRASA board while being a judge, as well as Part B, failing to act honorably during her tenure at PRASA. This emanates from a complaint by civil society organization Unite Behind, alleging that Makubele violated the separation of powers principle by being both a judge and chairperson of a state-owned company board and allegedly advancing corruption and state capture. The JSC has now resolved to refer the matter to the Speaker of the National Assembly and to recommend the commencement of removal proceedings in terms of Section 177, which is impeachment. Moving on to this now, South Africa's Air Traffic and Navigation Services has confirmed operational disruptions and departure delays at OR Tambo International Airport. The ATNS says a systems failure affecting air traffic control operations, specifically the flight plan management system, has caused the disruptions. Travellers are advised to arrive at the airport 2 hours before departure for domestic flights and 3 hours ahead for international flights. However, in a statement, ATNS says it's working around the clock to manage the situation and restore affected systems. Still on your aviation news, Trade Union Solidarity Secretary General Gideon du Plessis says it is ridiculous that pilots had to strike to get what they deserve, and as a result, pilots lost 12 days of remuneration. This, as the FlySafair pilot strike comes to an end today after an agreement was reached with airline management. Du Plessis says pilots will get a 6% wage increase in the first year to 6.9% in the final year over 4 years.
Is that they had to go and strike to get this. You know, the company must have lost hundreds of millions of rands. The pilots have lost 12 days of remuneration to get what we ask for, not only for a long time, but prior to the strike, we said, just give us this and the strike is over. There's no need for a strike. We asked that last week, you know, and yeah, so it's ridiculous. But on the wages side, it's a 4-year deal. So the pilots will get 6% in the first year, 6.5 in the second year, 6.8 in the third year, and 6.9 in the fourth year. Those are the increases. But also, you know, it's a no work, no pay principle that applies during a strike. And to soften that blow, they will also get a once-off payment of 15% of their monthly salary, plus their 5 leave days that they can cash in.
As of next week, at this stage, we already have a somewhat reduced flight schedule loaded for next week. And we do need a little bit of a gap just to make sure that we can realign all of the pilots back onto the roster that we have and ensure that everything syncs up properly and that everybody's various cycles are adhered to. And then we'll see an increase in some of the flights coming in as early as Friday next week. And then by the 12th, we'll be up to full schedule.
The case against the 55-year-old suspect charged with the murder of former ANC Youth League Secretary General Sindiso Magaqa has been postponed to the 14th of this month for a bail application in the Umzimkhulu Magistrates Court. Zwelipansi Skhosana, the former municipal manager of the Umzimkhulu municipality, faces charges of murder, conspiracy to commit murder, as well as possession of an unlicensed firearm.
Skhosana appeared in a packed courtroom. He was initially arrested in 2018 for the murder of Magaqa, who was a councillor in the Umzimkhulu municipality and said to have been an anti-corruption campaigner. Skhosana was arrested with 4 others, including the late mayor of Herigwala district, Mluleki Ndobe. But charges were later dropped against him and Ndobe due to the lack of sufficient evidence. Earlier this week, Skhosana was rearrested by the police's political killings task team.
I would say at this stage the NPA is ready to proceed. On the 14th of August, we will be ready to proceed with the matter.
Outside court, community members and representatives of political parties held a picket calling for justice.
We are cautiously jubilant that it has reached this far, but we still expect and we demand that others who were involved in this assassination be brought to justice. The police that brought an AK-47, the police that brought a Mercedes-Benz that was used in this killing. We also believe that those who paid money must also be arrested.
Skhosana was remanded in custody until his bail application. Simpiwe Makanya, SABC News, Umzimkhulu.
Thank you for staying with us. The Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, Sindiswa Chikunga, has made a call for the protection of women-owned businesses in the wake of the 30% U.S. tariffs. The minister was speaking at the Women's Trade Dialogue in Sandton, Johannesburg.
As nations around the world grapple with the higher U.S. tariffs, Minister Sindisiwe Chikunga says the situation can be more dire for local women-led businesses. Several women gathered in Sandton, Johannesburg for a dialogue with a 30% imposed U.S. tariff on the SA exports coming under the spotlight.
I do believe that they will impact on women very much. And that is why we are interacting with the Department of Trade and Industry on how best can we actually protect women from that impact, particularly the small and medium enterprises that are there. That will always include women.
This tariff hike will pose a direct threat to the country's export capacity in sectors including automotive, agro-processing, steel and chemicals, amongst others. Those in business say they are looking forward to the export support as talks between the two nations continue.
President must be able to give a clear line of march on what is he that is going to do to ensure that young women from rural areas, particularly Limpopo, their livelihoods improve.
From here to the 9th of August, the main Women's Day event set for the Limpopo province. Expectations are that of President Cyril Ramaphosa delivering safeguards for women businesses with the hope that the imposed tariffs won't lead to large-scale job losses and the death of some small businesses. Katlego Logodi, SABC News at the Sandton Convention Center.
August arrives with new possibilities and new weather patterns. Our weather experts are on standby to help you chart the skies. Your forecast is coming up next.
Welcome, and let's take a look at your weather details. Partly cloudy skies along the coastal areas, Western Cape going to Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal with isolated showers along the coastal areas. To the interior, it is going to be clear tonight with few clouds sitting over the eastern parts of Mpumalanga and Limpopo for tonight. Tomorrow, related conditions can be expected over Eastern Cape with isolated showers along the coastal areas. Heading to KwaZulu-Natal, the northeastern parts, still some few clouds, but clear over most parts of South Africa. We do have a warning, strong damaging winds along the coastal areas going to Northern Cape, Western Cape, Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal. Please do take note of that. And over the interior of KwaZulu-Natal, we're also expecting those strong winds. Do make sure that you are safe. This is what we are going to see tonight, dropping to -3 in Bethlehem, 11 for Richards Bay, 0 for Bloemfontein and Uppington, -6 in Sutherland, -1 over Beaufort Western, -1 for Calvinia DR at -3. Komani will drop to -2. Now, tomorrow, we are going to peak at a maximum of 18 in Pretoria, 17 for Johannesburg, Messina at 22, 23 for Uppington, 20 for Richards Bay, and 18 for the city of Durban. The city of Cape Town will peak at a maximum of 24 degrees, and Alexander Bay, a maximum of 33 is forecast for tomorrow. Now, your extended forecast, this is what we are expecting. Partly cloudy skies over the southern interior and over most parts of South Africa, with cold conditions over the northern interior. There is a cold front that is approaching, bringing in cooler conditions. But come Monday, we see up to 80% chance of showers along the coastal areas. To the interior of that, it becomes up to 60, then isolated for most parts of the province, with partly cloudy skies dominating most parts of South Africa. That is all from the weather desk. Ndayondo.
As August continues, let's keep shining a light on the incredible women who inspire us. My message to you is to keep pushing boundaries and breaking barriers for women everywhere. After all, the future is female. Thank you for watching Prime News on 3. From myself, Becky, and my wonderful team, good night and happy Women's Month.